Hey guys, so today I'm going to be talking about 3 books. I read all of these around the time I was on vacation, and so I didn't have a lot of notes. This is going to be a real quick summary of each one and a couple little thoughts. The first one is The 9 Lives of Rose Napolitano, The Blood Dowry, and The Dead Romantics. So The 9 Lives of Rose Napolitano is about a lady who is married to a guy. They had decided they weren't gonna have any babies. Neither one of them wanted to have any entering into their marriage. Sometime in, the husband changes his mind, and it goes through 9 different versions of what choice Rose Napolitano makes, whether or not she has a baby, she stays with him, it goes through lots of different versions. Through each one of them, the husband still wants to have a baby. So not the only variable changing, but that variable stays the same. He has changed his mind, he wants to have a baby, and he's trying to push her into doing it. And if I'm gonna be honest, there were lots of moments in this book that I was very angry, just kind of with the misogynistic point of view. You are supposed to be angry about it. At one point in time, he actually says, why do I have to marry the one woman in the world that doesn't want to have a baby? Those little things get me fired up, like she's supposed to stop everything that she is doing and wants for her life to breed for you. And he gets angry at her and is yelling at her like she's not the one who changes her mind. So not all separate versions are her decision. Like some of them, she decides to have a baby, stay with her husband, and see how that works out for her. One, she has a miscarriage. One, I think she gives up for adoption. I think there's a divorce in one. So there are all avenues that she kind of explores, even if they weren't exactly her choice. I think the reason why I got so fired up in a lot of this was because the husband reminded me of my ex-husband a lot, and I felt like there were a lot of conversations and arguments that paralleled arguments that I actually had in real life. So I think that's why I got a little bit fired up on some of these things. Also, with the mom in some of the versions, she doesn't seem so supportive. So it's a little bit like, is the mom supportive? Is she not? You kind of don't know. There was an argument they had in one of those versions where she said something like, you need to figure out how to make your husband happy and don't lose him over this stubbornness. I have had that conversation with my mom before, with my ex-husband. Not the same situation, but some version of that. So there were many moments where I was upset for Rose and wish everybody would just shut their mouths and let her live her life. The book was pretty neutral about pro or against having kids. That overlying message stayed pretty neutral. More about the effect of choices that you make and the pressures that women have to make certain choices and the people making them for them. So overall, I gave it a 3.5 because it was a little bit confusing on the lives going back and forth. It would jump from like 1 to 7 to 4 and then revisit some of those, but not others. So sometimes it took me like a couple of pages to realize which life we were in and exploring. And I have to say, maybe it's just me, but the word capitulate was sort of a word of the day, it felt a little bit like a word of the day sort of thing. Like the first time I read it, I was like, oh, capitulate, that's a good word. Second time I was like, oh, there it is again. And then the third, fourth, I'm like, oh, right. There was a book I read recently where lament, that was the word. It was like they read it that day and wanted to put it in every single part of the book that they could. I imagine this book is actually something that probably for some people would be very healing. So I would recommend, even though I only gave it a 3.5, I bet for some people this would be a healing book. So give it a shot for sure. And then The Dowry of Blood. This is a Dracula retelling. I read this one. I kind of switched between audio and back and forth when I was on the plane with this one. So I feel like there might have been a few things that I did miss, like during takeoff and landing and things. Dracula saves this peasant, which he, makes his wife, turns her, and they do develop a connection. She really believes that deep down he does love her, but he is controlling. He's a little bit odd and isolates. There's lots of things that she doesn't know about him, that he never lets her in on certain sides of his life and who he is. They bring in a consort. At first she's kind of iffy about it, but then she develops a real connection between, you know, those two women. So they start living their lives sort of as a throuple. Then the consort, at first she's really happy and they're traveling and doing a bunch of things together and everything's pretty fulfilling, but over time she starts to get sad, feel isolated. She wants to bring in another person. They bring in another guy. Chaos ensues because that guy really doesn't have any sort of connection with Dracula. With each person that's added to the equation, the more everybody notices the controlling, and they try to figure out a way to separate themselves from him and live their lives after centuries. I think I'm gonna end up rereading it because it has a lot of potential, but like I said, since I was traveling, going through the airport, you know, while listening during takeoff and everything, I do feel like I missed a lot, but the bones are there for it to be a good story. As of right now, I'd probably give it a 3.75. I think if I read it and really gave it my full attention, it would be a higher rating. I don't know what it is about this cover. I really like this cover. I generally don't like people on the cover, even though it's not a real, you know, person, but that vibe, I love it. I don't know. I don't like when books are not even like that, if you care. So then The Dead Romantics is the last one that I read whenever I was on my vacation. So I also went back and forth between audio and physical copy. It's about a ghostwriter who is writing for a popular author, but nobody in her personal life knows about it, not her family, not her friends, but they guess constantly. It sort of becomes an inside joke. And she's coming up on a deadline with the next book, and I think in the series that's due. She's having a writer's block because she's broken up with her boyfriend and she doesn't believe in love anymore, so it's really hard for her to write a romance novel. She meets up with the new editor. They don't really hit it off at the beginning. She kind of thinks he's a little bit of a jerk, leaves the office thinking she's never gonna see him again, ends up going out with her friends one night. While she's out, she gets a phone call that her dad has died. She goes back home, is trying to take care of the funeral arrangements and everything. Her family owns a funeral home, so you find out that she actually sees ghosts. And when she was younger, she solved a murder with the help of one of the ghosts. And she was young, so she had told people that she was getting the information from a ghost, so she got a lot of criticism, basically got ran out of town. So when she's coming back, it's not a comfortable thing. She doesn't want to see anybody or anything like that. And she runs into the editor in her hometown, and he's a ghost. So he's died. He doesn't remember how, and he doesn't believe it at first. But eventually, through some, you know, experiences and things that happen, he comes to terms with, yeah, he's dead. So he sort of helps her with her grief and, you know, planning the funeral. She's helping him come to terms with the fact that he's dead. Of course, there's lots of feelings going on. She starts to believe in love again, and she's able to write. This is another one that I'd probably give a 3.5. Good story, no bad writing. It just didn't really excite me or anything, but I think that if you love a good little contemporary romance book, this would be good for you. So if you guys have read any of these, have any thoughts, or, you know, anything that I missed, because I definitely, with how passive I read these, I know that I missed some, and that just keep in mind in my ratings that the way that I read these three, that's probably why they feel a little bit more mediocre. I'm catching up now after vacation's over on all the books that I have read and getting the reviews out. So Salt Kiss. These are spicy, but this one. I have Honeycut, the sequel to that. And I will, even though I'm gonna be doing some videos over this, I'm gonna do a video with just Salt Kiss and Honeycut once I finish those and really go into detail because they deserve their own videos. I know that I generally get people going over to Instagram and communicating more through Instagram. You guys can comment down at the bottom here, but it's totally cool if you want to go to Instagram and talk to me there. My name's the same, Miranda K Reviews. I do feel like there are more discussions on all of these books, so if you're more of a lurker and still want to see, you know, discussion, jump over there. Also, we have more fun things that we do, more like themed things like fall bingo. I also have a few little writing prompts that I do every week. So if you want to read any of my writing, which I haven't done in so many years, and I've really enjoyed getting back into writing small little short stories. So I've been doing that once a week with different prompts. We've done Vikings, Greek mythology inspired, dragons. I mean, we've done everything. So check out the Instagram and let me know you've come from here, because I know there are a lot of people that go over to Instagram and prefer talking on that platform versus this, which is fine because I'm on that all the time too. That's it, guys. I will see you in the next video.